I want to turn it over to Jose Bernal, who is from the End the Injunctions Coalition, who is also a member of the San Francisco Reentry Council. So give it up for Jose.
Thank you, Chelsea. I want to thank Supervisor Frewer's office for supporting us and having this today in this press conference. I want to thank members of the press for being out here. I want to thank our members from the End the Injunctions Coalition for being here, putting this together. A little context, a little background about gang injunctions and why we're out here today. So these injunctions have been in place for over 10 years. When they first came out, we know that every single person named on there was a black or brown male. In the history of gang injunctions throughout California, there's never been a white gang targeted on there, even though we know the existence of it. We have some very serious concerns with these injunctions. 10 years after the fact, we can actually look back and say, does this make sense for San Francisco? Is this a good policy? Does this create trust in our communities? So I'm going to hand it over to Lucero Hererra from the Young Women's Freedom Center, and also part of our coalition, to talk more about the impacts of these injunctions.
Hi, my name is Lucero Hererra, and I'm part of the Young Women's Freedom Center. I demand gang injunctions to end, the practice of gang injunction and the enhancement to stop. It just affects the life of minorities that choose to hang with one another. Gang task force make it seem as gangs, and they are demonized and punished harder. Being charged with the gang enhancement, you are forever punished. Family, mother, father, child are most impacted by the trauma caused by the gang task force in front of the individual's child and the individual who is being targeted. Having to be told to stay away where you live or you grew up in or where your family is at. Gang enhancement and the gang injunction has given the law enforcement, the penitentiary group, easy tools to arrest and sentence teens and young adults and minorities to being black and brown to a longer sentence, overcharged or charged an adult. These with the purpose of meeting their contract quotas to keep the jails filled. The lead to deportation and separation of family and their children, children being part of the jail system or if parents are being deported, children falling in the foster system, which we all know is an unhealthy system, not the way should the system be. Gang injunctions are racial profiling, policing tools that hurt youth and San Francisco communities of color. I'm fighting to end these policies because we need resources for our young people, from people coming home from jail that build neighborhoods up, not criminalizing them for life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucero. Our next speaker is Felicia Jones, and she is with Justice for Mario Woods, Wealth and Disparities.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Justice delayed is justice denied. And here in San Francisco, let's see if I can get this right. Here in San Francisco, we have a huge issue of black people here in San Francisco being denied justice. Justice in regards to Mario Woods, in which DA Gascon last Thursday indicated that he would not charge the killer cops who murdered Mario, who was shot at 26 times with 21 bullets piercing his small frame body. We have gang injunctions is nothing but another effort of racial profiling. Racial profiling on black people and brown people here in San Francisco, but the majority who are affected are black people. Black people here in San Francisco represent about 3% of the total population of San Francisco, but yet and still, we represent 53% in San Francisco city and county jail. When you look at gang injunctions and racial profiling, they're pulling you over. They have the permission from Dennis Hererra, the city attorney who wants to be mayor of the city, who ran for mayor of the city. We have politicians here in the city. And yet and still, they have no regard of black lives. And so I say to the city and county of San Francisco, known as the Golden City by the Bay, is a racist city by the Bay. These politicians don't come out to the black community. They ignore the black community because in their hearts, in their minds, black people here in San Francisco is not important. And one of the ways in which they say that is that the gang injunction started in 2007 with the agreement that they will review the gang injunctions every 3 years. So here we are, 11 years later. 11 years later, Dennis Hererra and his team has not once looked at who's on the gang injunctions list, who should be removed, because a lot of times in our culture, black people, we assemble together, and because you assemble together, maybe on a corner, in the middle of the block, in front of your house, then the police and the city and county of San Francisco dictates that you are part of a gang. Then that record follows you. They say it's civil, but then the civil turns into criminal allegations. And then what do we have to fight for? Because this is what San Francisco is about. I heard the great minister, Christopher Muhammad, of the Nation of Islam, indicate while he is fighting for justice around the toxicity in Bayview, again, not looking at black people are important. They built homes on this toxic land. We are just not important. But the thing that he said in San Francisco, there is a dark, unholy alliance here in San Francisco. And that is what we need to break down. The dark, unholy alliance that equals discrimination, racism, ignoring, non-employment, high unemployment, racial profiling. And I see my friend Jeff Adachi is here, and I hope he's going to talk about his review around the San Francisco police and racial profiling. San Francisco police is the first person at the contact of arrest. They have the authority to increase the penal code when they arrest people, especially black people, to the highest. And then the district attorney sees the cases. So again, we as a community, we as activists, we can't do this alone, and we must begin to dismantle this dark, unholy alliance that exists in San Francisco that is built around racism, discrimination, racial profiling. Again, my name is Felicia Jones. I am the founder of Wealth and Disparities in the Black Community, Justice for Mario Woods. I am a union delegate for SEIU 1021, and thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Our next speaker is Ruben Leal, and he's from Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice, Courage, and I'll allow the podium for him now.
Good morning. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ruben Leal, and I am born and raised in the Fruitvale District in Oakland, California. And I wanted to share a quick story about the first time that I had a negative interaction with law enforcement. It was in the year 1995, and I was 7 years old. Me and my brothers were playing on our bicycles outside our house, and an OPD officer rushed my brother and he started choking them, and he kept saying, "Spit it out, spit it out." And I witnessed my brother turn blue, and at that moment, I realized that the folks that my whole life, my 7 years of living, that are supposed to protect me, that wasn't the case. Fast forward to 2010, I was named in the Fruitvale Gang Injunction. I was one of 40 members named of the alleged gang in the Fruitvale. The experience of being on the gang injunction was constant harassment. Every day the police would go to my mom's house. Every single day, they would pass by. Like the intimidation that we would face every day was just awful. So what we did, we started organizing against the gang injunctions. We were just not saying what we were against the gang injunction, but we were saying what kind of community are we ready to build? What kind of future do we want for our children? So we started organizing, we started doing block parties, we started beautifying the neighborhood through art and murals. We started a garden. And in 2015, we were the first city in the nation to fully defeat a gang injunction. In 2015, the city attorney of the city of Oakland, California, dismissed all gang injunction suits against all defendants in the Fruitvale and North Oakland gang injunction. The city was gonna do up to 11 more gang injunctions in the city, and we were able to stop that. So I'm here as a defendant that was a defendant in the gang injunction to tell the city of San Francisco and the county of San Francisco, who is touted and looks itself as this progressive city and this progressive body, that this type of legislation and policy is outdated, and I want to tell them to follow in the footsteps of Oakland, to follow in the footsteps of Los Angeles, and to follow in the footsteps of Portland, and to let these outdated policies go and to follow the recs of the Reentry Council. Thank you very much.
Next speaker I'm going to bring up from Western Addition, Daniel Landry.
Greetings. Well, I was initially at the original press conference that Dennis Hererra, when he announced the gang injunction in 2007, and what struck me is that while announcing the gang injunction, I questioned him on who did you talk to in the neighborhoods? Who did you actually meet with to really identify what's by definition a gang and what's by definition is not a gang? Now, I was just on San Francisco Street Gangs.com. And if you look at the list of San Francisco Street Gangs.com, it identifies gangs that you probably have never even heard about. Asian gangs, Irish gangs, gangs up in the Sunset District. But why was it so important for Dennis Hererra in San Francisco to file a civil injunction against gangs in the black and brown community? This is a question, even up to today, that have not been answered by our city. We know that low-income housing, the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, in the years of displacement, crime, injustice, police brutality, economic depressions in our community have lasted for so long that our areas have been targeted and identified for development. So in San Francisco, you normally see justification before these corporate housing development come in and take advantage. And take advantage of our community. Now, I said to Dennis Hererra, I said, you know, I begged him to put me on the gang injunction list. And some would say, why would you do that, Daniel? Well, I'm a former gang member. I am the reason why what he calls, and the city called a knockout posse, was established. I'm wearing a shirt that says KO for life. And I said to Mr. Hererra privately and even in the press conference, and I've said it publicly, when you want to know about law, you go to a lawyer. When you want to know about sports, you speak to sportscasters and those in that profession who understand sports. And if you want to know something about a gang, you talk to ex-gang members. Key ex-gang members. Because since 1993, I've been volunteering myself in the communities of San Francisco, striving daily to try to make our communities productive, successful, and get rid of crime. Use me as an example that every young black and brown and even white and Asian who's a part of a gang can change. Use me as an example, Mr. Hererra, that of course, if you've done something in your past and you pay by spending time in incarceration in prison, you should not be identified as a gang member for the rest of your life. That negative stigma should not be attached to you. When I read his report initially, a report about the definition of a gang, I said, who are you talking about, the SFPD? Is that who you're talking about? Because by definition, Mr. Hererra, it doesn't make sense. You can't pick and choose who's a gang member. You can't politically use us as pawns on the map of San Francisco so you can make way for development and make way for business and move out those who's not desirable in the neighborhoods. This is insanity. And I'll say this in closing. San Francisco is a great city.
Not to me it is.
But San Francisco is not a good city. Good and great is different. San Francisco has a budget that goes all the way up to the moon. San Francisco has some great opportunities. But the thing that's lacking in this city is compassion.
Yeah.
And love for everybody.
Yeah.
So in closing, let's end the gang injunction. It shouldn't have never came up in the first place. Because I am Mario Woods. I am Oscar Grant. And Mario Woods was on the gang injunction list. Thank you very much. Keep working hard. I'm a phone call away, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Our next speaker is going to be Jeff Adachi, but before, I just want to say something. When do we want these injunctions ended? Now! When do we want these injunctions ended? Now!
I know that the gang injunctions were wrong from the very beginning, and that's why I asked Dennis Hererra at the time to justify why he was doing this, why he put 200 young people, all people of color, on these injunctions, banning them from certain activities, banning them from their own communities. And at the time, they claimed that this was going to be a cure-all for poverty and a cure-all for crime. We know that that's not the case. And the reality is that these young people have been restrained without proper legal justification for too long. So we're asking the city attorney to do the right thing, and that is to dissolve the injunctions in their entirety. He's still clinging on to them, saying that they worked, saying that they are responsible for reduction in crime, saying that people should still be included on the injunctions. We respectfully disagree, and we ask him to dissolve the injunctions today, but no later than June 13th, where we have these hearings coming up. I want to acknowledge Supervisor Sandra Feuer, who was responsible for putting this in motion, along with the San Francisco Reentry Council and other community organizations. What we have to do from this point on is to make sure that the city attorney acts on his promises. He had promised to conduct a review. That review has not occurred. He has said now that he's going to do this review and that he is going to be releasing the majority of individuals. Remember that people who are on the injunction did not have a right to a lawyer. Our office was able to represent just a handful of individuals at the time and succeeded in taking them off the injunction. I represented one individual myself who was included on the injunction. His only infraction was that he had done a rap song about a gang, and he attended supposedly 2 street memorials and was seen by officers. It was all based on hearsay. And so we were able to get him removed off the injunction, but the majority of people either didn't show up, were afraid to show up, or didn't have attorneys. And so now is the opportunity to correct that. We have this hearing that's coming up, so we want to make sure that people know about it. It's on June 13th at 4 p.m. Before the Board of Supervisors. And we want to make sure that anyone who is on the injunction who has any questions about the legal proceedings at this point, come forward and feel free to contact our office at 553-1671. So again, we want to support these efforts. We want to make sure that these gang injunctions are dissolved in their entirety, and we want to make sure that the city attorney hears us loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, June 13th, room 263, Board of Supervisors hearing. We really have want to hold the city attorney accountable, for this.
What time?
4 p.m. So it's a special evening time. It's a 4 p.m. time. We really want to get the community out there. I serve on the San Francisco Reentry Council, and this really hits me near to my heart, really deep. San Francisco, I think I'm going to echo what Daniel said. It's a great city. It really is. But if you're a black or brown person in this community, you feel more and more unwelcomed every day, every year. And I'm going to tell you, there's a sense of hypocrisy from our city, from the city attorney's office, for us to stand up to Trump and say, that we don't accept his rhetoric, we don't accept his bigoted messages. We say that we're against a Muslim registry, and yet in San Francisco for the past 11 years, we've had a black and brown registry, a permanent registry here in San Francisco. There's a level of hypocrisy there. Very recently, the city attorney, conducted a review finally. Even though he put it in writing in an MOU saying that he was going to do a review every 3 years, he finally did it. Found out that there were deceased black and brown men on that list, deceased individuals on there. How disrespectful is that? How disrespectful is to the mothers, to the brothers, to the sisters out there, to the families, to the community to have that. So he finally did his review, and now he's saying that he removed them because it's effective. So I challenge you, the media who's here today, I challenge you to really dig into that and ask, why was it effective? In his press release, all he cited was arrest data. There's no correlation. There's no correlation there. So I challenge the media here today to ask those tough questions to the city attorney's office, and we're going to stand up to him. The Reentry Council took a position on this, and we're going to deliver a letter to him right after this, because this is unconscionable. This is embarrassing that Los Angeles, Oakland, Portland, even the conservative county of Orange County, even the Trump-loving conservative county of Orange County got rid of their gang injunctions. This is embarrassing for San Francisco. So what do we want? When do we want the injunctions ended? Now. When do we want them ended? Now. When our community is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When black and brown folks are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our folks are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the baby was under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Western Addition is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Mission is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Viz Valley is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for being here. We're going to walk up there and we're going to give the letter to the city attorney's office right now. Thank you so much.